She was a beautiful college co-ed, ready to conquer the world.
She was a bright and shining star.
He was a slightly older man who promised to fulfill her every desire.
He was somewhat of a father figure and also a boyfriend.
Their bond seemed to be solid as a rock until a shocking disappearance shattered their picture-perfect romance.
She just disappeared into thin air.
Friends and family launch a desperate search to uncover the truth.
Just let me know where she is.
I wasn't gonna stop until either we found her or found out what happened to her.
The hunt turned into a real sordid chapter.
A chapter that was dripping with jealousy, intrigue, and in the end, an unspeakable evil.
I knew for a fact I was having a meeting with the devil. It sent a chill through me.
This son of a bitch was playing games with the family. He knew what had happened.
This isn't happening. This is not happening.
Wednesday, March 21st, 2007, 5:30 p.m. Investigator Sidney Miller and his partner are driving down a highway north of Houston, Texas. A pair of passengers in the back seat are giving them directions to the possible location of a missing 19-year-old woman who disappeared 6 days prior.
She had actually been missing since March the 15th of 2007.
On the passenger's instructions, the detectives exit the highway and pull into an apartment complex.
He directed us to the back of the complex, to this parking lot, where he pointed out this dumpster.
Fearing the worst, Investigator Miller and his partner peer inside, but the dumpster is empty.
You sure this is it?
There was no obvious human remains that I could see at that point.
Was this some kind of sick joke, or another dead end in an ever more troubling case?
We didn't know where she was. At that point, we didn't know what happened to her.
To unlock the mystery of this missing woman, detectives will follow a twisted path of lust and betrayal, lovers and lies, all of which leads to a young woman whose bright future was snuffed out in the darkest way imaginable. Early on, Tynesha Stewart's family knew there was something special about her.
My family just knew that Tynesha was gonna stand out and accomplish so much.
But Tynesha was no stranger to hard times. One of 6 children, Tynesha grew up in one of Houston's toughest neighborhoods and lost her father at a very young age. Still, Tynesha refused to let her environment dictate her future.
She was really good in school. She really studied her books. She took that very serious.
Blessed with natural beauty and an infectious smile, Tynesha had no problem attracting boys.
Tynesha always had multiple guys wanting to date her.
But Tynesha wanted more from love than what the average guy could offer.
Tynesha was more attracted to someone that could challenge her.
In May 2005, while working at a pizza restaurant, the stunning 17-year-old met a man that fit the bill. Handsome coworker, Tim Shepard.
So what's up, we still on for this weekend?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You promised.
I gotta study.
Oh, you gonna act funny now?
Tim would keep asking her to go out on dates. Eventually, she just gave in and said, okay, I'll try it.
We're gonna do a little dancing. It's gonna be a good time.
Okay.
It went from them just being friends or co-workers to them actually developing an intimate relationship with each other.
Bye. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, it's gonna become my favorite show.
Although Tim was 25, neither he nor Tynesha let their 8-year age gap stand in the way of their budding romance.
Tim and Tynesha's relationship progressed pretty swiftly. It just became really serious.
I'm so happy.
Yeah, because I'm here.
Yes, because you're here.
But just as this steamy relationship reached a boiling point, Tynesha's family turned down the heat.
So a phone call is more important than me?
Hey, Mom. Yeah, it's Tim. Don't do that. Mom, don't do that. Like, come on, really?
We wanted to know what his motives were. He could have picked any other woman that was his age to date. Why is he dating such a young girl?
Like, I don't know.
It'd be fine, look. Just do a little in-house visit. I'll smooth everything out.
Really?
Yeah. Had it in the wrong place, I think.
So it's something simple.
I think you just gotta plug this plug in. Yeah.
In order to prove how much he loved Tanisha, Tim began spending time with her family. It didn't take long for Tim to win them over.
There you have it.
Yes!
Oh, no problem. You're welcome.
He was always around at my mom's house, trying to fix her TV, trying to fix their computers.
Going right for good table.
You know, I try to do what I can.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh, you're welcome.
They embraced him as another son. Her mom embraced him, her sister, her brother embraced him as like another brother.
But just when it seemed like the young couple couldn't get any closer, some good news took Tanisha's life in a different direction.
Tanisha earned a scholarship to Texas A&M University.
I was so happy for her. It was a big accomplishment.
Even though the A&M campus is nearly 2 hours from Tanisha's home in Houston, Tanisha was determined to keep her relationship with Tim alive. But just 3 months into her first semester in college, Tim reignited a relationship with an old girlfriend and subsequently dumped Tanisha.
I remember Tanisha just bawling, crying, stating that she couldn't believe that her and Tim had broken up.
But no sooner had Tim broken up with Tanisha than he realized he'd made a terrible mistake.
He decided to go down to Texas A&M and surprise her, and from there they were able to talk and discuss whatever issues they were having, and from there they started back dating.
But this time around, something seemed different.
They just weren't seeing eye to eye, and Tanisha was on a different level. She became even more independent.
She was meeting new people and trying new things out on her own. Tanisha's goal was to move forward in life.
When Tanisha returned home for spring break, she saw Tim briefly, but spent most of her time hanging out with friends.
Who's going to the concert with?
They're my girlfriends.
Okay. I'm gonna see you afterwards.
Well, we're trying to go eat afterward.
So I have to set up appointments to see my girlfriend now?
No, it's not like that.
I heard Tanisha was coming home for spring break, and I briefly talked to her. She told me that her and a couple of her friends were going to see Beyonce in concert.
But a few days before the concert, Tanisha's sister Gayla had a nightmare.
I had a bad dream that some jealous girls jumped on her and beat her, and we couldn't find her body. Tanisha was like, "Oh, calm down. I promise you that I'm gonna be okay."
Sadly, Gayla's nightmare would hit closer to home than anyone in Tanisha's family could have ever imagined. Sunday, March 18th, 2007. As Gayla returns home from church, she receives a disturbing phone call from her mother.
Hello?
Gayla?
Hey,
Have you
Mom.
talked to Tanisha?
No, not since Thursday. Why?
Oh my goodness, nobody's heard from her.
What do you mean nobody's heard from her?
She was supposed to go to the Beyonce concert, I knew that. And then she
Right.
didn't show up.
She never made it to the concert?
No.
Oh my God, Mom.
My heart had dropped because I knew and I felt it in my spirit, in my soul, that something was wrong.
Tanisha's friends echo those sentiments. 36 hours pass, and there's still no sign of Tanisha.
I'm terrified because I don't know what's going on at all. It does not make sense to me.
Why is this going on? Why is this happening?
Police would soon be asking the same questions. But nobody could anticipate the horrific answers they would uncover, or what hidden desires burned in the heart of a missing young woman. For 2 years, Tim Shepard and Tanisha Stewart had a love that knew no bounds.
When she finally decided to start dating him, she cut off, anybody else at the time.
However, when Tanisha moved away to college in the fall of 2006, her and Tim's once unbreakable bond began showing a few cracks.
It was on and off, but she still would come back and visit with Tim. And I believe Tanisha was still in love with him.
But in March 2007, their world turns upside down when Tanisha returns home for spring break and inexplicably disappears. Several days pass, and there's still no sign of Tanisha.
We went around to some hospitals. We even called the jail, just trying to cover all bases, and no one had heard from her.
Gayla Taylor also reaches out to her sister's boyfriend, Tim Shepard. But like everyone else, Tim has no clue what happened to Tanisha.
Hello?
Tim, hey, this is Gayla.
Hey, what's up?
What's going on? Mom just called me saying that Tanisha's missing.
What? Hold on. Missing? What do you mean missing?
Yeah, she's missing. She's not answering her phone. I mean, when is the last time you talked to her?
According to Tim, the last he spoke with Tynesha was 3 days prior, on Thursday morning.
It was like she came over to the house with me, but she left, and that was the last time I heard her or seen her.
Nobody's talked to her since then?
No, it's not like Tanisha to just leave and not answer her phone and not call anybody and not check in.
Fearing the worst, Tanisha's family files a missing persons report Monday, March 19th. Once investigators realized Tim was one of the last people to see Tanisha, they asked him to come down to the station.
So, Mr. Shepard, can you tell me the last time you talked to Tanisha?
A couple of days ago, Thursday.
His story was that he picked Tanisha up that Thursday morning around 3 o'clock in the morning.
So you was driving back to your apartment Thursday. Did y'all talk about anything?
Tried to. She got a phone call from, some guy.
The caller was Tanisha's college friend, Mark Marks, who she'd hung out with earlier that night.
This upset Timothy. When they get back to the apartment, Timothy confronts Tanisha about why is he calling you so early in the morning. And Tanisha says, I don't want to talk about it, and we can talk about it when we wake up.
I mean, we've kind of having relationship problems, so I was just trying to smooth things out, and got to the apartment. She just went in the room. She didn't want to mention anything about it. So I kind of suspected she was cheating on me a little.
Tim tells investigators that despite his misgivings, he agreed to table the issue as Tanisha requested. But when they woke up a few hours later, Tim confronted Tanisha about the phone call with Mark Marks. Again, she stonewalled him.
Ty, we need to talk about this.
Talk about what?
About what? This whole situation.
What whole situation? There's nothing to talk about.
Once they get up, he confronts her about why Mr. Marks called her so early in the morning. Tanisha says, I don't want to talk about it. I'm tired of talking about it.
There's nothing to talk about?
No, it's not.
Okay, what about Mark then?
We're not talking about Mark. Like, I'm not talking
Okay, well...
Like, really? I came home to have fun. I'm not doing this.
Are you serious?
Bye.
According to Tim, Tanisha then stormed out of his apartment.
She left the apartment and left walking on her own that day. And that was the last time he says that he saw her.
Tim, are you being honest with us?
Yes, I'm being honest.
And you don't have any idea where she is?
I have no idea. I love Tanisha.
They questioned him for, I think they said 20 hours, something like that.
While Tim never wavers from his account, police are curious if his apartment might tell another story.
When Shepard gave his statement, he also gave us written consent, voluntary consent to search his apartment.
But a search of Tim's apartment fails to turn up any evidence related to Tanisha's disappearance.
We didn't have any strong suspicion that he had done anything illegal, so we gave him the key back to his apartment, and we continued our investigation.
With Tim all but eliminated as a suspect, detectives set their sights on another man, Mark Marks.
He was one of the last two people to be around Tanisha. So quite naturally, Mark Marks was a person that law enforcement wanted to speak with.
Had Tanisha been seeing Mark Marks on the side? If so, could Mark be involved in Tanisha's disappearance? Hoping to answer these questions, detectives reach out to one of Tanisha's closest friends, Ashley Walton, and make a shocking discovery.
I want to thank you for coming down here, taking your time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
Of course.
Just got a few questions to ask you.
Yeah.
Ever heard of a Mark Marks?
Of course I have. I mean, I set him and Tanisha up. He's a friend of my boyfriend. Him and Tanisha were together for maybe a month or so. They're crazy about each other.
They hit it off. But at the time, Tanisha was still dating Timothy.
Now, let me ask you this. Did Mark know about Tim?
Yes, he did. He didn't really like the fact that he had shared Tanisha with anybody. I mean, who would like that kind of idea?
Well, then why didn't she break it off with Tim?
I mean, it's hard, when you love someone, because she did love Tim.
Like I said, I appreciate you coming down here and talking with us.
The interview with Ashley is a revelation, and police can't help but wonder, could Tanisha's ongoing relationship with Tim have triggered some sort of jealous rage in boyfriend number 2, Mark Marks? Determined to unravel this mystery, detectives track Marks down and bring him in for questioning on Wednesday, March 21st.
What's the nature of your relationship with Tanisha?
We're dating.
Mark was a typical 19-year-old kid. I mean, couple of tattoos, sharp, articulate. He was cooperative.
Did you know she was dating Tim Shepard as well?
Yeah, sure, she told me.
So how did that make you feel?
Well, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Turning up the heat, detectives press Mark for answers.
So when was the last time you saw her?
It was last Thursday.
He indicated that he had last seen her earlier Thursday. She was at some other friend's house at the time, but he had left her at the apartment.
What time was that?
I don't know, like 3 a.m.?
Did you talk about your relationship that evening?
Yeah, sure, we talked about a lot. I mean, she told me that she was ready to leave Tim, that she and I were gonna be together. She didn't want to hurt his feelings, but that she was ready to move on.
Detectives are suspicious. Mark's statement places him with Tanisha shortly before Tim picked her up. Is it possible seeing Tanisha with Tim sent Mark into a jealous rage, and that Mark waited until she left Tim's apartment a few hours later to exact his revenge?
Did you have anything to do with her disappearance?
No, not at all.
Did you pick her up from Tim's apartment?
Absolutely not.
Mark Marks is adamant he had nothing to do with Tanisha's disappearance. He also claims to have a rock-solid alibi. He was at a party with friends on nearby South Padre Island at the time Tanisha vanished.
So you have no idea what happened to her?
No, not at all. I love Tanisha. She was all I cared about. I would never do anything to hurt her.
Detectives confirm Mark's alibi and let him go.
He was as innocent as they come. It showed that it really shook him when he learned that Tanisha was missing.
With their top two suspects in the clear, detectives begin looking elsewhere. That's when a frightening theory surfaces. The possibility that Tanisha might have been abducted by a stranger after leaving Tim Shepard's apartment on foot.
We had to broaden our picture and start looking at all the other angles or possibilities that she could have come up missing.
1 week into the investigation, fear continues to mount, and with each passing day, the chances of finding Tanisha become slimmer and slimmer.
The first 24 to 48 hours are the most crucial time when someone is kidnapped or comes up missing. And after that 48-hour period, they're either dead or gone.
But as detectives dig deeper into Tanisha's case, they uncover a series of shocking yet seemingly unrelated clues. The question is, can they connect the dots before it's too late? Ever since 19-year-old Tanisha Stewart started college, her romance with boyfriend Tim Shepard had been a bit of a roller coaster ride.
They did love each other, but it was not a smooth relationship.
Tim hoped to work out the kinks in the relationship when Tanisha returned home over spring break. But shortly after arriving, Tanisha vanished without a trace.
Nothing was making sense because we couldn't find her.
Although investigators have put both Tim and Tanisha's new love interest, Mark Marks, through intense interrogations, they're still no closer to finding her. And now they're faced with a far more chilling prospect, that Tanisha may have been abducted by a stranger after leaving Tim's apartment on foot.
We were looking at the whole picture, whether somebody picked her up in a car and took her off, or somebody, grabbed inside one of the apartments.
Police combed the area surrounding the apartments where Tim lives.
He lived in the back of his apartments, and his apartment was down a dark road full of trees and woods.
While officers are searching the area for clues, back at headquarters, a tip rolls in. A woman who lives in the area recalls hearing something very suspicious around the time Tanisha disappeared.
Dispatch, do you have a K-9 unit in service? Okay, have them meet us at 675 Cumberland. We're on the way. I just talked to a neighbor. She heard gunshots coming from the wood lines the night of Tanisha's disappearance. Said that she heard the car speed off. I got K-9 units on the way.
When the K-9 unit arrives, they immediately notice the faint smell of death in the air.
Smell that? Yeah, let's go see what we can find.
All right, let's go.
Inside my head, I just knew that somewhere around there we were gonna find her body.
Locking onto the scent, the canine officer leads investigators deeper into the woods. Minutes later, they finally locate the source of the smell.
What you got, bud?
The rotting remains of a dead animal.
That's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, not a bad thing, though.
All right.
While friends and family breathe a sigh of relief, the clock is ticking. Tynesha's sister Gayla decides it's time to join detectives in the search.
I started calling family, friends, getting my own search party together. They came the next day with a whole bunch of more volunteers.
We knocking on doors, talking to neighbors that may have seen or heard something, that may have seen her walking away.
Despite the additional boots on the ground, nobody recalls seeing Tynesha. But several residents make the same curious observation, that Tim Shepard spent the day after Tynesha's disappearance doing some serious barbecuing.
He had 2 grills going at one point, and they were concerned Timothy was going to burn the place down.
Worried neighbors said they dialed 911 once the smoke got out of control. After police and firemen contained the fire, they turned their attention toward Tim.
What's all the smoke here from today?
I was doing some last-minute grilling.
Tim told first responders he was cooking the main course for an upcoming church picnic.
How much meat you cooking?
It's for about 150, 200 people. Just throwing meat on the grill, I got a little bit behind, so it's just kind of got chaos.
Just kind of flamed up?
Yeah.
This is a lot of smoke.
It is, man. I had a lot of food.
The building's on fire.
Tim's story is confirmed when firemen looked around his apartment.
One of the firemen reported seeing what he thought was ribs in a bathtub that was filled with water, meat.
To detectives, it seems odd that Tim would be more interested in grilling out than helping look for his girlfriend.
If he really loved her, why is he not searching for her?
As detectives ponder that very question, they receive another bizarre report about Tim.
I myself talked to one particular individual who noticed him pouring bleach on his patio, and she said it was so strong that it was burning her eyes.
Was Tim just trying to clean up after his grill session got a bit out of hand? Or was he trying to hide something else?
That led law enforcement to look at him as a potential suspect.
When detectives shine the light of suspicion on Tim, they find something dark lurking just under the surface. But they'll also soon discover it is another man, not Tim, who holds the key to unlocking the mystery behind Tynesha Stewart's disappearance. It's been a week since 19-year-old college freshman Tynesha Stewart vanished without a trace. Although police initially ruled out her longtime boyfriend Tim Shepard as a suspect, recent reports of suspicious behavior have police circling back to him.
Tenants reported Shepard barbecuing for a period of from Friday all the way over the weekend, continuously.
Perhaps more importantly, neighbors also reported seeing Tim cleaning his patio with an inordinate amount of bleach shortly after Tynesha's disappearance. Could Tim be trying to cover something up? If so, what? Hoping to learn more about Tim and Tynesha's history, detectives reach back out to her friends and family. While no one denies Tim loved Tynesha, they say that the more Tynesha spread her wings at college, the more possessive and domineering Tim became.
He felt like he pretty much owned her.
He would call, harass her, and at times even drove down to Texas A&M, walking the campus trying to find her when she wouldn't return his phone calls.
But despite Tim's increasingly controlling nature, he still held a special place in Tynesha's heart.
She just longed for Timothy to love her, without abuse, without control, without violence.
But when Tim learned about Tynesha's blossoming relationship with college friend Mark Marks, the situation went from bad to worse.
There were some threats that Timothy had made to Tynesha via, cell phone, text messages.
But the threatening messages were just the beginning.
Kayla told us about a time when Tim didn't want her to leave and that Tim had strangled her.
Threatening messages, physical violence, when coupled with the fact that Tim scoured his patio with bleach shortly after Tynesha's disappearance, Investigators are now wondering if perhaps Tim is behind Tanisha's disappearance after all.
There was some clues there. There was evidence of recent cleaning going on in that apartment, but we didn't have enough at that point to charge him with anything.
Investigators may not have enough evidence to charge Tim Shepard, but Tanisha's family is now convinced he's somehow involved.
I was like, this guy's gonna get away with this if I don't get these people to arrest him. And that's when I decided to call Quanell X.
He is somewhat of an activist for the African American community.
I've been the one that black men in this city have come to when they're wanted by police. And I've been able to, by God's grace, facilitate many peaceful surrenders.
In a face-to-face meeting with Quanell X, Tanisha's sister desperately pleads her family's case.
The reason I'm here to talk to you is my sister, Tanisha Stewart, has been missing.
Tanisha Stewart?
Mm-hmm.
And when's the last time you seen her?
They were adamant that they knew something had happened to her, and they were extremely terrified and worried of where was their loved one.
Her boyfriend, Tim, is the last one to see her.
Tim Shepard?
Yes, that's him.
Turns out Quanell is already familiar with Tanisha's disappearance. Tim Shepard's family had also called on him to help.
And they were asking me to get involved to help protect him from overzealous cops that were going to pin a dirty charge on him. His family saying he didn't do anything.
Unsure who to believe, Quanell X calls Tim Shepard, who agrees to a private meeting at his apartment.
Tim?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Quanell.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Hey, brother. How you doing?
I'm freaking out, man.
When Quanell arrives, Tim is upset.
You know what I'm saying, brother, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right, Tim. And he was extremely stressed.
Is there any place that we can talk?
Just talking in the bathroom. I feel like they have my place wired or something.
Okay, let's go to that.
Okay.
He said he's trying to set me up. And I said, Tim, if you're innocent, I'll fight for you, brother. But if you're not innocent, brother, we need to talk about this.
Tim nervously recalls the last time he saw Tanisha.
We had a fight and she stormed out. That was the last time I saw her. I swear.
I said, brother, look me in my eye. And he put his head down like that. And then I knew there was more to the story than what he was saying. I said, Tim, look me in my eye. Tim, did you do something to this girl? And at that moment, everything changed. Everything.
In the case of missing college freshman Tanisha Stewart, some peculiar behavior, along with a series of eyewitness statements, have catapulted Tanisha's boyfriend, Tim Shepard, to the top of the suspect list. But without any physical evidence connecting Tim to any crime, bringing charges against him will be impossible. In desperation, Tanisha's family has turned to a well-known community activist named Quanell X for help. And in an emotional face-to-face meeting with Tim, Quanell seems to be on the verge of a breakthrough.
He said to me, they're gonna give me the death penalty. And I said, Tim, why would they give you the death penalty, man?
Is she dead? Yeah.
Tim tells Quanell that when Tanisha refused to elaborate on her relationship with Mark Marks, he flew into a jealous rage.
She was messing with this guy named Mark, and...
Did y'all get into a fight?
Yeah.
And what happened?
I just went into a rage, and I killed her.
Tim tells Quanell that as Tanisha was walking out the door, he attacked her and ultimately strangled her to death.
And what'd you do with her after that?
Put her body in a dumpster.
My heart was racing, because now I've gone from trying to help this brother, possibly who's being set up by overzealous investigators, to a man who has now committed a cold-blooded killing.
After hearing Tim's confession, Quanell X relays the statement to investigator Sidney Miller. The two men, along with Miller's partner and a distraught Tim Shepard, then head to a dumpster where Tim allegedly disposed of Tanisha's body.
We're gonna be able to give this family some closure and find out what actually happened.
Believing Tanisha's body is inside the trash bin, investigator Miller calls in a CSI team. But no sooner have they started putting up the yellow tape than Tanisha's family pulls up.
They just kept saying, is she alive? Is she alive? And I said, no. I said, she's not alive. And they all just broke down in hysterics.
I mean, it's like my heart was ripped out of my chest.
But while Tanisha's family mourns their apparent loss, CSIs make a shocking discovery. Tanisha's body isn't in the dumpster, nor for that matter is anything else.
I noticed that the dumpster, it looked like it had been recently emptied.
So now where did that dumpster go? Well, there's a landfill. It's massive.
Detectives know that in a city the size of Houston, the chances of finding Tanisha's body in a landfill are slim to none.
You have not a needle in a haystack, but you've got a needle in a stack of haystacks.
After learning that a search of the landfill would cost upwards of $500,000, a tough decision is made.
Tanisha's family talked to the sheriff and said, don't waste the money.
Making matters even more difficult is the fact that shortly after his arrest, Tim Shepard has a change of heart about his confession.
He had invoked his right to have an attorney, and at that point he didn't want to talk. But based on the information we already had, at that point, we had enough to charge him.
But with Tim's prior confession without Tanisha's body, it will be difficult to make the murder charges stick. Investigators must find more evidence in order to solidify their case. Again, they turn to the CSI team to scour Tim's apartment for additional clues.
We knew that we would be looking for microscopic evidence, so we just made sure we wouldn't leave a stone unturned.
The search pays off.
We found some bone fragments in the garbage disposal, eventually found what we later learned was enamel.
Officer Hunter, I found this next to the grill.
Did you get a photograph of it?
I did.
Let's back that.
CSIs also find some charred bone fragments not far from where Tim kept his grill. The bone fragments are sent to the crime lab. While the charred remains are in too poor a condition to be positively ID'd, the enamel found in the disposal is determined to be from one of Tanisha's teeth.
I think your teeth don't go down a garbage disposal unless someone puts them down there.
Between this new evidence, the accounts of Tim's nonstop barbecuing, and reports from a fireman who saw what he thought was uncooked meat floating in Tim's bathtub, a new, more horrific picture of the crime begins to emerge.
They believe that Tanisha, she had been chopped up and incinerated.
Armed with this gruesome information, a grand jury officially indicts Tim Shepard for the murder of Tanisha Stewart. But as the case heads to trial, prosecutors know they still face an uphill battle.
That was probably the biggest hurdle, to get the jury to convict just based on the circumstantial evidence alone.
On September 29, 2008, the state of Texas versus Tim Shepard gets underway.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we will prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Tim Shepard is responsible for the death of Tanisha Stewart.
I felt a lot of pressure just because I didn't want to let Tanisha's family down, and I didn't want to let Tanisha down.
Prosecutors open by laying out the state's version of the crime. In the morning hours of March 15, 2007, Tim Shepard murdered Tanisha in his Houston apartment. To cover up the crime, Tim hacked Tanisha's body into pieces, then spent days cooking her remains over a grill before tossing them in the dumpster to cover his tracks.
There was sufficient evidence for us to put it before a jury and let them make the determination that she was in fact killed and mutilated in a gruesome manner.
As for a motive, prosecutors claim Tim would have rather seen Tanisha dead than to see her with another man.
She disrespected him because she began to move on with her life.
Tim's defense team counters that the state's theory is just that, a theory.
Regardless of what the prosecution tells you, there is no evidence.
In this case, there is no body. We felt like without a body, this would be a hurdle for the prosecution.
Even so, there was no denying the tooth fragments found inside Tim's disposal did come from Tanisha.
No person that was alive is going to quietly allow someone to extract a tooth or teeth from them and put them in a garbage disposal.
After putting forth physical evidence, Prosecutors called their star witness to the stand, Quanell X.
Quanell testified where Timothy identified locations where he tossed her body after he mutilated her, and that was gripping testimony.
I asked him if he killed her, and he said yes.
Quanell's testimony is riveting, but some in the courtroom question his credibility.
He's a controversial character. He has done time for selling drugs. He has now made a name for himself for standing up for minority rights in the city.
With Quanell X's turn on the witness stand seemingly a push, prosecutors play their last card and call the defendant's own cousin, Nicholas Shepard, to the stand. What Nicholas has to say blows everyone in the courtroom away.
Nicholas testified to the fact that Timothy said he would do harm to Tynesha if it came down to it, and that if he had to kill somebody, he would cut him up and boil him.
I think the jury was a little bit surprised about what they were hearing. You could sense some shock and disbelief.
But before the final gavel falls, the defense will call a surprise witness to the stand. A witness whose story could crush the prosecution's case. A witness named Tim Shepard. Prosecutors claim that 29-year-old Tim Shepard killed his beautiful young girlfriend, Tynesha Stewart, in order to prevent her from seeing another man. Then Tim gruesomely dismembered, burned, and disposed of Tynesha's remains. Tim's attorneys counter that since police never recovered Tynesha's body, there's no proof a murder was ever committed.
How do we know she's even dead?
But Tim's own cousin, Nicholas Shepard, testifies that Tim confessed he would do just that if Tynesha ever tried to leave him.
He said if she ever left from me, he would cut her up, boil her.
The testimony of Nicholas Shepard seems to seal the deal. After 24 hours of deliberation, the jury returns with their verdict.
The jury came back with a guilty verdict of murder, and I was happy for Tynesha's mother and her family and her friends.
I was relieved because I felt like that was finally the end of the emotional roller coaster that we had all experienced within the past year.
But even with the guilty verdict, this roller coaster trial is far from over. In Texas, the official verdict can't be handed down until after the sentencing hearing, and can even be overturned during that phase of the process. And at his sentencing hearing, Tim Shepard makes a bold move and takes the stand in his own defense. Under oath, Tim claims that on the night of the crime, Tynesha was the one who was hungry for blood, and that Tim had killed her purely in self-defense.
Tim tried to make her look like she was a participant in her own death. If she wouldn't have did what she did, then maybe he wouldn't have did what he did.
Tim tells the jury that it started when he confronted Tynesha about her relationship with Mark Marks.
For a long time, I've been suspecting she's been cheating on me. I asked her about this guy named Mark. Sit down, let's just talk about it.
There's nothing to talk about.
It's a lot to talk about. What about this? Who's this Mark guy? Who is Mark?
No, Mark doesn't matter. Move.
He said that he was blocking the door so that she wouldn't leave because he wanted to work things out.
According to Tim, that's when Tynesha snapped.
She just flipped out.
He says that Tynesha grabbed some knife that was laying on a coffee table and slashed at him.
What are you doing?
Move!
Put it down.
And he grabbed her neck to keep her from stabbing or slashing at him anymore.
He said there was a brief struggle and that he blacked out. And that's all he remembers until he woke up and she wasn't breathing.
Ty.
To support Tim's testimony, his attorneys submit photographs taken of Tim's hands the night he was arrested. Photographs that suggest Tim had recently been cut by some sort of sharp object.
Tim really believed that he was defending himself and that it was an accident.
It's compelling evidence. And if the jury believes Tim's version of events, it's possible that he will spend little to no time in prison.
It just felt like a nightmare. I just couldn't believe that this was unspiraling the way that it was.
But the scales of justice tipped back in prosecutors' favor when they asked him to explain his ghastly behavior in the wake of Tynesha's death.
We talked about what he did with the parts of her body. And I asked if he put them on the barbecue pit, and he very quickly corrected me and said, no, I put her in the smoker.
To me, that's not human.
On the heels of this gruesome testimony, not only does the jury uphold the guilty verdict, but they hammer Tim with the maximum sentence possible.
Assess his punishment at confinement in the Institutional Division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for 99 years.
They knew that a man that was capable of such a cold-blooded murder and could talk about it in such a way was dangerous and could never be trusted.
But in the minds of Tanisha's friends and family, the punishment doesn't go far enough.
I prefer him to be in a cell 24/7 with a picture of Tanisha that flashes every day, so you'll never forget why you're in here.
Tanisha's loved ones can take some comfort in the fact that Tim Shepard will never get the chance to hurt another woman again, to never take the life of someone with such intelligence, beauty, and a future of limitless possibilities. Someone like Tanisha Stewart.
Love got the best of him, and he overreacted.
Switched off, plunging the town into darkness, only to be violently illuminated by the light of 1,000 burning torches. The roar of the crowd was deafening, a visceral, primal sound that vibrated in the chest. At the center of the procession was the Jarl squad, heavily bearded men dressed in elaborate Viking armor, carrying gleaming axes and shields. They marched beside a magnificent, full-sized replica of a Norse longship, the dragon head at its prow casting long, dancing shadows against the stone buildings. The air was thick with the smell of paraffin and burning pitch. Sparks drifted into the freezing night sky like angry fireflies. How are we supposed to find anyone in this? Tosh yelled over the roar of the crowd, clutching her coat collar tight against her throat. He's on the committee. Jimmy shouted back, scanning the sea of faces illuminated by the fire. He'll be near the galley. They pushed their way through the throngs of tourists and locals. Everyone was drinking, shouting, completely absorbed in the spectacle. It was the perfect place to hide. It was the perfect place to disappear. As they neared the designated burning site, a large walled park near the center of town, the chanting grew louder. The geyser Jarl stood atop the longship, raising his axe. A thunderous cheer erupted. The torchbearers circled the ship, the flames painting their faces in demonic hues of orange and red. Jimmy's eyes darted across the VIP viewing area. There, standing slightly apart from the crowd, wearing a heavy overcoat over an expensive suit, was Duncan Hunter, He was watching the ship with a cold, detached expression. Duncan, Jimmy roared, shoving his way past a group of teenagers dressed as penguins. Duncan turned, spotting Jimmy. For a second, a flash of genuine panic crossed his handsome face. Then he turned and bolted into the crowd, moving away from the fire and into the dark, narrow alleyways of Lerwick's old town. Police! Move! Jimmy yelled, drawing his baton and sprinting after him. Tosh was right on his heels. The alleys were a labyrinth of wet cobblestones and blind corners. The sound of the festival faded slightly, replaced by the harsh, echoing slap of their boots on the stone. Duncan, stop! Jimmy bellowed, turning a corner into a narrow close. He saw Duncan's shadow dart into a doorway at the end of the alley. It was the back entrance to the old fish market, a derelict building waiting to be demolished for luxury flats, Duncan's own project. Jimmy kicked the heavy wooden door open. The inside of the market smelled of centuries of salt, fish guts, and rot. The only light came from the faint ambient glow of the festival fire filtering through the grimy skylights. It's over, Duncan, Jimmy said, stepping into the cavernous space, his flashlight cutting a stark white beam through the gloom. Anna told us everything about the affair, about Mima finding out. Silence, then a rustle of movement near the old ice vats. I didn't kill her, Jimmy, Duncan's voice echoed, sounding hollow and scared. I swear on Cassie's life, I didn't shoot Mima. You had the motive. Jimmy walked slowly forward, tracking the voice. She was going to ruin your relationship with Anna, and more importantly, she was never going to sell you that land. But if she died, it went to Joseph. And Joseph is a lot easier to persuade. It's true. I wanted the land. Duncan stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, his hands raised in surrender. His designer coat was stained with dirt. And yes, Anna and it was a mistake. We got careless. Mima saw us. She threatened to tell Ronald. So you went to Bresse to silence her. No, Duncan insisted, his eyes wide. I went to see her. Yes, to offer her money, to buy her silence. But when I got to the croft, she was already dead. Jimmy, the door was blasted open. I panicked. If I was found there with my motive, I'd be locked up forever. So I ran. And Hattie James, Tosh asked, stepping out from behind Jimmy, her own flashlight trained on Duncan. Did you run from her too? Duncan looked genuinely confused. Hattie, the student, what about her? She was murdered this afternoon. On the moors, Jimmy said, watching Duncan's face for any micro-expression of guilt. Duncan staggered back, hitting the pillar. Murdered. Oh my God. No. Jimmy, I've been in Lerwick all day, setting up the festival barriers. I have 50 witnesses who can place me at the Esplanade since noon. Jimmy knew, with a sinking feeling in his gut, that Duncan was telling the truth. The shock was too raw. Duncan was a sleazy businessman and an adulterer, but he wasn't a cold-blooded killer running through peat bogs with a hunting knife. Who beat up Ronald? Jimmy demanded. Duncan swallowed hard. I did. He came at me at the docks. He was drunk, swinging wildly. He knew about Anna. I hit him with a pipe I found on the ground to defend myself. I left him there. I'm sorry, Jimmy. I'm so sorry. Jimmy lowered his flashlight. The pieces didn't fit. If Duncan didn't kill Mima, and he didn't kill Hattie, then who did? Suddenly, from outside, the night was shattered by a massive, booming explosion of sound. The crowd at the park had thrown their torches into the galley. Through the grimy skylights of the fish market, the sky turned a brilliant, violent orange. The fire had begun, and in that flash of blinding light, Jimmy's mind finally connected the disjointed fragments of the puzzle. Mima Wilson, the skull of Per Lundstedt, the missing journal detailing a traitor, Hattie James murdered with a knife to keep her quiet. It wasn't about the land. It wasn't about the affair. Those were just convenient distractions. It was about the past. Oh, God, Jimmy whispered, the blood running cold in his veins. Sir, Tosh asked, alarmed by the look on his face. The traitor, Jimmy said, his voice barely audible over the roaring fire outside. The one who sold out the Shetland bus. Perlunstead found out who it was, and he wrote it in his journal. And Mima knew, Tosh realized, she kept the secret to protect someone. Not someone, Jimmy corrected, turning to run back toward the door. Family. But Andrew Holdan is in a wheelchair, Tosh argued, chasing after him. He couldn't have killed them. No, Jimmy shouted, bursting out into the alleyway, sprinting toward his car. But his grandson could. A grandson who would do anything to protect his family's name and their fortune. A grandson who was a police officer who had access to the crime scene, who knew exactly how to contaminate evidence, and who had a shotgun license. Tosh stopped dead in her tracks. Sandy. Chapter 17, The Sins of the Fathers. The drive to the Wilson house in Lerwick was a blur of adrenaline and dread. Jimmy pushed the engine of his Ford Focus to the limit, weaving dangerously through the festival traffic. Sandy Wilson, the quiet, eager to please detective constable, the boy who had thrown up outside his grandmother's croft. It had been a perfect performance. I told my dad not to come down. I was worried about contamination. Sandy had been alone at the croft for over an hour before Jimmy arrived. He hadn't just discovered the body, he had orchestrated the scene. I used a pen to push the jack. She didn't have anything to steal. He had unplugged the phone so Mima couldn't call for help as she lay dying. And Hattie, Sandy had been off duty today. He had known about the dig, known about the documents Hattie found. He had gone up there, taken Berglund's knife from the empty tent, and hunted her down in the bog to retrieve the journal that named his great-grandfather as a Nazi collaborator. Jimmy slammed the brakes, skidding to a halt outside Joseph Wilson's neat, terraced house. The front door was ajar. Jimmy drew his baton, signaling for Tosh to take the back. He moved silently up the path, stepping through the open door into the hallway. The house was dark, but a faint light spilled from the living room. Jimmy edged closer. He heard the sound of sobbing. He stepped into the doorway, his baton raised. Joseph Wilson was sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands, crying silently. On the coffee table in front of him lay a heavy, leather-bound journal. The pages were yellowed and brittle. Per Lundstedt's journal. Standing by the window, looking out at the distant glow of the Up-Hellier fire, was Sandy. He was holding his service radio in one hand and a heavy iron poker from the fireplace in the other. He turned as Jimmy entered. His young face was unrecognizable, twisted by grief, desperation, and a terrifying, cold resolve. Sandy, Jimmy said, his voice surprisingly calm, put it down. You figured it out, then, sir? Sandy asked, his voice cracking. He sounded like a frightened child. I knew you would. You're too smart. I know about the journal. Sandy, I know what Andrew Holdan did during the war. Joseph let out a broken wail from the sofa. He sold them out. Jimmy, my grandfather, he sold out the Norwegian boys for German gold to build his fishing fleet. Nima knew. She caught him burying the body. She kept quiet to protect the family name, to protect me. And when the dig started, Sandy continued, his knuckles white around the iron poker. She panicked. She told me she was going to confess. She was going to ruin everything. The whole Dan Empire. Our name. Everyone would know we were the descendants of a traitor. So you shot your own grandmother? Jimmy asked, repulsed. I had to. Sandy screamed, tears streaming down his face. I had to protect us. She was old. She had lived her life. But if that journal got out, the Haldanes would lose everything. They'd take the boats, the money, the respect. And Hattie? Sandy shuddered, closing his eyes. She saw the journal in the tent. She read the names. I didn't want to hurt her, Inspector. I swear. But she ran. I chased her. And I had the knife. I just couldn't let her tell. It's over, Sandy, Jimmy said softly, taking a step forward. You're a police officer. You know how this ends. Put the poker down. Sandy looked at the iron bar in his hand, then out the window at the roaring fire illuminating the Shetland sky. The Viking galley was burning to ash, taking its secrets with it. I wanted to be a good detective, sir, Sandy whispered, a sad, broken smile touching his lips. I really did. He raised the iron poker, not at Jimmy, but swinging it wildly toward his own head. No! Jimmy lunged forward, tackling the young officer to the floor. The poker crashed into the coffee table, splintering the wood. They wrestled on the carpet, Sandy fighting with the manic strength of a doomed man. But Jimmy was older, heavier, and fueled by righteous anger. He pinned Sandy down, wrenching his arms behind his back and snapping the handcuffs shut with a brutal click. Sandy collapsed against the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Joseph Wilson sat on the sofa, frozen in horror, watching his son a murderer twice over being read his rights. Tosh burst through the back door, breathing heavily, assessing the scene in a split second. Call for a transport, Jimmy ordered, hauling Sandy to his feet. He looked at the young man, feeling no triumph, only a profound, crushing sorrow for the island that had bred such dark loyalty. Yes, sir, Tosh said quietly, reaching for her radio. As they walked Sandy out of the house and into the freezing Shetland night, the wind howled off the North Sea, carrying the scent of salt, ancient ice, and the bitter ashes of the burning galley. The secrets of Bressay had finally been unearthed, but the scars they left behind would take generations to heal. End of part 2. The architecture of masks. Prologue, the cost of a coat. The human face is the most elaborate lie ever constructed. We spend our lives curated by expectations, dressing ourselves in the fabrics of our professions, our marriages, and our social standing. But for some, the mask isn't a social necessity, it is the entire self. In the late afternoon light of Orange County, 1979, the sun didn't just shine, it glared. It bounced off the chrome of luxury cars and the glass of medical plazas, promising a version of the American dream that was as sterile as a surgical suite. Inside one of these suites, a man adjusted his stethoscope. He looked like a doctor. He spoke like a doctor. He even smelled of antiseptic and authority. But Gerald Barnbaum knew that if you peel back enough layers of a mask, eventually you find nothing but the cold, hard vacuum of a man who never existed. Chapter 1, The Clinic of Silence. Rick D'Alessandro was a man who believed in the tangible. He believed in blood pressure readings, the steady rhythm of a healthy heart, and the clear, unambiguous data of a lab report. As a physician's assistant, his job was to be the bridge between the patient's suffering and the doctor's wisdom. In 1979, that wisdom supposedly resided in Dr. Gerald Barnes. He was a charming man. Rick would later recall, his voice carrying the weight of a decade's worth of hindsight. A little guy, but he filled a room. He had that bedside manner they don't teach in school, the kind that makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. The clinic in Orange County was a hive of activity. Dr. Barnes was the director, a position of prestige that he occupied with a natural, almost theatrical grace. He was the doctor's doctor, the man who stayed late, the man who remembered the names of his patients' children. But Rick noticed small things. A hesitation when discussing complex pharmacology. A certain vagueness when the conversation drifted toward the minutiae of medical school rotations. At the time, Rick dismissed it. He's a busy man, he told himself. The administrative burden of being a director is heavy. Then came the morning of December 26th, the day after Christmas. The world was nursing a collective hangover of celebration, and the clinic was quiet, save for the hum of the air conditioning and the occasional cough from the waiting room. John Mackenzie walked in, or rather, he shuffled. He was 29 years old, a man in the prime of his life, but he looked like a ghost. His skin was the color of old parchment, and his eyes were sunken, darting around with a frantic, unfocused energy. I'm so thirsty. Rick, John whispered. His voice was raspy, as if his throat were lined with sand. I drink, and it just goes through me. I'm dizzy. The room won't stay still. Rick performed the intake. Extreme weight loss, polyuria, polydipsia, the classic triad. To a trained eye, the red flags were waving violently. He ushered John into the exam room where Dr. Barnes waited. Dizziness, A. The doctor said, his voice a soothing baritone. He patted John on the shoulder. Probably just a touch of vertigo. A little inner ear imbalance. It's been a stressful season. John, we'll get you fixed up. Rick watched as Barnes scribbled a prescription for an anti-vertigo medication. No immediate finger stick for blood sugar. No urgent hospitalization. Just a slip of paper and a see you next week. Doctor, shouldn't we? Rick started. We've ordered the blood tests. Rick, Barnes interrupted, flashing a bright, practiced smile. The lab will have them by tomorrow. Let the man go home and rest. It's the holidays. John Mackenzie left the clinic clutching a prescription that was effectively a death warrant. He walked out into the California sun, his body screaming for insulin, his blood turning into a thick, syrupy poison. Chapter 2. The weight of 1,200. The next day, the clinic felt different. The air was heavy. Dr. Barnes had the day off a reward for his hard work during the holiday rush. The lab results arrived in a manila envelope. Rick opened it, his heart skipping a beat as he scanned the numbers. He looked for the glucose line. He expected to see a high number, perhaps 200 or 300. The number on the page was 1,200. In the medical world, a blood sugar of 1,200 isn't just a high reading. It is an emergency of the highest order. It is the threshold of a diabetic coma. It is the body's internal systems failing in real time. My God, Rick whispered. He didn't wait. He didn't call the director. He grabbed the phone and started dialing. He called John's home, no answer. He called John's ex-wife. His emergency contacts nothing. A cold dread began to pool in Rick's stomach. I need a wellness check for John Mackenzie, Rick told the dispatcher at the Garden Grove Police Department. This is a medical emergency. He could be dead or dying. The police arrived at John's apartment an hour later. The silence behind the door was absolute. When they kicked it in, they found him in the kitchen. He was lying on the linoleum, his hand outstretched toward a glass of water he never reached. In his other hand was the prescription for the vertigo pills, the useless scraps of paper given to him by a man of science. John Mackenzie was dead. He was 29 years old. He left behind a 4-year-old daughter named Jill, who would spend the rest of her life wondering why her father never came home from the doctor. Chapter 3, The Actors Resume. Grief is a powerful catalyst. For Rick D'Alessandro, the grief for John Mackenzie quickly curdled into a sharp, piercing suspicion. How could a medical director miss a 1,200 blood sugar? How could a man with a medical degree treat a dying diabetic with vertigo pills? Rick sat in his office, the clinic now feeling like a house of mirrors. He picked up the phone and called the medical board in Sacramento. I'd like to verify the credentials of Dr. Gerald Barnes, he said. One moment, the clerk replied. We have a Gerald Barnes, orthopedic surgeon, practicing in Stockton. Stockton. Rick frowned. That's 400 miles away. This Dr. Barnes is a GP in Orange County. Would you like us to fax his identification photo? When the fax machine began to work and spit out the grainy image, Rick felt the world tilt. The man in the photo was older, with different features, a different jawline. It was a face he had never seen in his life. The man he had been working for, the man who had just treated John Mackenzie, was not Gerald Barnes. The investigation that followed unraveled a lie of staggering proportions. The man at the clinic was actually Gerald Barnbaum, a former pharmacist from Chicago. Barnbaum wasn't a doctor. He was a failed actor and a convicted fraudster who had been caught in a Medicaid scam years earlier, when his pharmacy license was revoked. Barnbound didn't reflect or repent. He simply decided to play a bigger role. He moved to California, changed a few letters of his name, and borrowed the identity of a real doctor. He had called the medical board, claimed he lost his license, and they, without a single background check, sent him a duplicate. He had spent years seeing 30 to 40 patients a day. He had diagnosed illnesses, performed exams, and prescribed narcotics. He had lived a life of prestige, earning a high salary and the respect of his community, all while operating on the medical knowledge of a high school student and a few years of pharmacy school. He was an actor, investigator Eddie Banks would later say, and the clinic was his stage. Every patient was an audience member, and his performance was so good that even the experts didn't look behind the curtain. On August 8, 1980, the curtain finally fell. Gerald Barnbound was arrested. He didn't look like a killer. He looked like a likable little guy who had made a mistake. But the state of California didn't see a mistake. They saw manslaughter. Chapter 4, The Interstate Shadow. While Gerald Barnbound was beginning his first prison stint several states away, another man was discovering the thrill of the mask. David Brankel did not look like a bank robber. He was impeccably dressed, often in custom-tailored suits that suggested a man of significant means. He was an entrepreneur, a consultant, a visionary. In the small, close-knit town of Bloomington, Indiana, he was the kind of man people wanted to be around. Phil Sperry, a local businessman, was one of them. He was smooth, Phil remembered. He had an answer for everything. He rented an office from us, claimed he was starting an architectural and construction firm called ACR. He talked about big projects, city planning, the future. But David Brankel's future wasn't built on blueprints and bricks. It was built on the interstate. Brankel lived a life of compartmentalized geography. In one town, he was the devoted father and husband. In another, he was the dashing boyfriend to a waitress named Donna. And on the highways that connected them, He was the interstate bank mart bandit. His method was a masterpiece of efficiency. He didn't hit the massive, high-security banks in city centers. He targeted the small branches inside grocery stores and bank marts. They were usually staffed by younger, less experienced tellers. They were located near major highway on-ramps. He would walk in, often wearing a fishing hat or a simple pair of tan coveralls. He didn't shout. He didn't wave a gun. He would slide a note across the counter. I have a gun. Be quiet. Go home alive. He would be in and out in less than 90 seconds. By the time the police were dispatched, Brankel would be back on the I-65 or the I-70, his black BMW cruising at the speed limit, the stolen cash tucked away in a designer briefcase. I think the guy I'm looking for is doing the exact same thing I'm doing. Detective Larry Duncan would later muse. Duncan was the man tasked with catching him. I was sitting at my computer, looking at maps of grocery stores near interstates. And on the other side of the screen, in some hotel room or rented office, David Brankel was doing the same thing. It was a game of digital chess played across state lines. Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee. Brankel was a ghost who left no fingerprints and no trail except for the pattern of his robberies. Chapter 5. The Two-Way Mirror. By the mid-90s, Gerald Barnbaum was out of prison. He had served his time for the death of John Mackenzie, but the prison walls hadn't changed him. They had only refined his craft. While incarcerated, he had taken medical correspondence courses. He had studied the language of healing so he could more effectively poison the truth. He stepped out of the prison gates and immediately stepped back into a lab coat. This time, he found Lisa Roberts. He was the perfect husband, Lisa said, her voice trembling with the ghost of a memory. Flowers, dinners, concerts. He swept me off my feet. He was Dr. Gerald Barnes, the medical director of a high-end clinic in Los Angeles. He made 6 figures. We were going to have children. We were going to build a life. For over a year, Lisa shared a bed with a man whose name she didn't know. She watched him leave for work every morning, his stethoscope draped around his neck like a badge of honor. She attended company functions where other doctors sought his advice. Even the FBI used his clinic for their agent physicals. Think of the irony. 100 FBI agents trained to spot deception, stripped down to their underwear, and let an imposter listen to their hearts. The mask was perfect until the Christmas party of 1996. Rick D'Alessandro was there. Fate, it seems, has a sense of dark humor. Rick was attending the same industry event. He was checking in at the desk when he saw a man across the room. A likable little guy with a familiar smile. Rick looked at the man's lapel. The name tag read, "Hi, I'm Dr. Barnes." The blood drained from Rick's face. "You've got to be kidding me," he whispered. He walked over. The music was playing something festive and bright. The air smelled of expensive cologne and champagne. "Hi, Rick," the imposter said, not missing a beat. His voice was as cool as the ice in his drink. "How are you doing?" "Well, Gerald," Rick replied, his voice shaking with fury. "I'm not doing too well, because you're doing the same thing you did in the 70s. You're a fraud." Barnbaum didn't panic. He didn't run. He leaned in, his eyes soft and pleading. "Rick, you don't understand. This is all just a big mistake. I can go home and get the paperwork. I can prove everything. Then go get it," the clinic supervisor said, having overheard the exchange. Barnbaum walked out the door. He didn't go home for paperwork. He went into the night, disappearing into the neon labyrinth of Los Angeles. But the FBI was no longer his patient. They were his hunters. Chapter 6, The Art of the Escape. David Brankel was also beginning to feel the heat. It was 2003, and the IBM task force, a coalition of detectives from multiple states, was closing in. They had a nickname for him now, IBM. They had a photo of his car, a black BMW. They had a theory about his home base in Indiana. They even had a name for their trap, Operation Intercept. On September 6, 2003, Brankel hit his 35th bank. He walked into a U.S. bank in Louisville, slid his note, and took the cash. The police radio crackled to life. Operation Intercept. Operation Intercept. Detectives flooded the highways. They pulled over every black BMW they saw. They searched trunks, checked IDs, and waited for the bandit to fall into their lap. But David Brankel was smarter than the average thief. He didn't take the interstate. He knew the police would be watching the veins of the city, so he took the back roads, the winding rural paths where the only witnesses were the cornfields and the crows. He slipped through the news, listening to the police scanner in his car, a smug smile on his face. He was listening to us, Detective Duncan said. He was one step ahead because he had no conscience to slow him down. Brankel returned to his safe zone. In Vincennes, he was a consultant for the Logan family, who were building a pet store empire. He sat at their dinner table, played with their children, and took their money for consultation fees. He was God's gift to us, Peggy Logan said, or so we thought. At the same time, Brankel was maintaining his relationship with Donna. She was now his getaway driver. They were the modern Bonnie and Clyde, fueled by a mixture of narcissism and high-octane gasoline. My mother said I couldn't even mow the lawn right. Brankel told Donna during one of their long drives. But look at me now. I'm the most successful bank robber in history. He wasn't robbing for the money anymore. He was robbing to prove that the mask was realer than the man. Chapter 7, The Collapse. The end of a lie is rarely a grand explosion. It is usually a series of small, pathetic cracks. For Gerald Barnbaum, the crack